Without feminism and feminists, there would be no men in women's restrooms. There would be no men in women's locker rooms. There would be no men on women's sports teams or taking women's awards and accolades. None of it would have been possible without feminism, which is why I find it endlessly amusing when old school feminists like J.K. Rowling comes to mind complain about the proliferation, the infiltration of men in women's spaces. I understand their anger. It's righteous anger. It's justified, but they don't think a layer deeper and realize that the false ideology that they support in one arena, feminism, is what paved the way for the proliferation of the false ideology of gender ideology. It's what paved the way for it to be even remotely acceptable for a man to be awarded Woman of the Year, or for a man to be in the arena competing against women in athletics. This is all because of feminism and feminists for the past 100+ years. Because what feminists have been fighting for a very long time is for women to be men, for women to be invading men's spaces and taking men's jobs and taking men's awards and accolades and doing every single thing that a man does and being in every single space that a man is what feminists have been fighting for, and they've been largely successful. And the gravest way in which feminism has fought for this is fighting for the right to deny, control, manipulate, and shirk their own natural, God-given biology. And how do they do this? Well, the proliferation of birth control. We hand out birth control to young women as if it is candy. We give it out for any number of ills, even if they are not sexually active. We also treat our menstrual cycles like it is a scourge. We can take pills to have fewer periods if that's what we want. We treat it like it's a scourge. And of course, the most evil and profound way that we have fought for the right to deny the constraints of our own biology is via abortion. Fighting for the right to end the lives of our own preborn offspring because we want to have physical intimacy like men without any consequences. That's what abortion is. When you fight for the right to an abortion, what you are fighting for is the right to shirk the constraints of your own biology. And that is exactly what trans activists and allies are fighting for. They are fighting for the right to shirk the constraints of their own biology. And when it comes to abortion, what do feminists call abortion? What do they call intentionally ending the life of your own genetically distinct, innocent, preborn offspring? They call it a right. They call it healthcare. Well, when it comes to sterilizing children and cutting off healthy body parts, what do trans activists and allies call it? They call it a right. They call it gender-affirming care. In more ways than one, feminists wrote the book for trans activists and allies today. They paved the way for this trans craziness. Whether they realize it or not, they lent credibility to this argument that we're seeing spring up with the trans craze. None of this would have been possible without feminism and feminists, because if women can shirk their own biology, then why can't men? And if women can be everywhere that men are, then why can't men? If women and men are completely equal, as the feminists have been arguing for a very long time, if women are basically just tiny, less hairy men, and we can do everything men can do and be everywhere men are and be everything men are, then men and women are essentially interchangeable. And if in fact we are interchangeable, then a man can in fact feel like a woman. A man can be a woman because it doesn't mean anything to be a woman. We're interchangeable with men. It's meaningless. A man can in fact be born into the wrong body because essentially what you're saying is we're all just souls thrown into different meat suits, and you know what? You might have gotten thrown into the wrong meat suit accidentally. What feminists are saying is the same thing that trans activists and allies are saying, that the fact of your femaleness does not matter, that women are not inherently different from men, that the fact of your femaleness doesn't touch every single facet of your body, of your experience, down to your very essence, down to your soul. They're arguing against that, which is exactly what the trans activists and allies are arguing against as well. I understand the anger, and I'm right there with you with the anger, But if you call yourself a feminist, you have to understand that you prop up a false ideology that lent credibility to and paved the way for this new ideology. The mistake was that feminists thought that they could draw the line and they could cut off where progress ends. But in fact, the slippery slope is real. We're on it. We've been on it for a long time. And you can't draw the line. You can't put it back in the box. You can't decide, oh, only this much progress, we can't go any further. Because again, if women get to shirk the natural constraints of our own biology, then why don't men get to do that? If women get to be everywhere that men are, then why don't men get to do that? You got to be honest with yourself.